You're listening to the Atlanta Dream Center Church podcast. If you'd like to support this ministry, log on to www.dreamcenterchurch.com, where every dollar advances the kingdom of God. We hope that this message edifies and encourages you to do the great things God has called you to do.
Today we're going to be talking about God of miracles, or actually the title is this, we are the vessel of God, the vessels of his miracles. How many of you guys want to see a miracle in your life? Anyone in here? Man, how many of you guys have ever thought, now listen, if you're not active, this is what I'm going to end up doing. I'm going to make you stand up. Is that cool with you guys? Actually, maybe everyone stand up right now. Everyone stand up. I need you to stretch really quick. I need you guys to be active. Look, I know it's warm in here. We got the AC kicking. Stretch. Push your neighbor. Push your spouse. Wake them up. You know what I'm saying? Say, okay, here we are. We're at church. We can't be, what are you doing, Mike? Yeah, there we go. All right, sit down, sit down, sit down. Now, you guys all get one job today. If your neighbor's not active, you need to call them out for it. Not loud, don't embarrass them, okay? But tell them, hey, where you at? You guys down for that? You guys cool with that? All right, good, all right? All right, so check this out, y'all. We're gonna be talking about vessels of his miracles. I've always wanted to see a crazy miracle. I think I've told you guys this before, but you guys know the miracle where Jesus walks on water? You guys know what I'm talking about? Okay, how many of you guys, I don't know, maybe you have this, maybe you don't, but sometimes, every time actually I'm at a body of water, especially at a lake, I always think, I stand on the shore and think, I should take a step. Does anyone else do that? Yeah, a few of us? Yeah, man, I just think, man, have you guys ever tried it? Yeah. Have you guys ever tried it fully clothed and not in your bathing suits? Have you ever tried that? Man, I've always wanted to see a crazy miracle. Another thing I want to see, this would be so cool to see, is to see someone who doesn't have arms or limbs and to pray and to see them grow out. Wouldn't that be crazy? Does anyone want to see that? Yeah, that sounds like a wizard movie or something, right? Like, what the heck, man? Or another one I've never personally seen, but I would like to see. I've seen reports, and I've read about them even recently. But wouldn't it be cool to be at like someone's funeral, right? They're dead. They're all made up. And you go like, rise up, my child. And all of a sudden they're like, hey, what's up, man? They wake up. Wouldn't that be crazy? I don't know about you, but I desire miracles, man. And to be honest, the thing about miracles is I'm always a little bit afraid of them happening. Because, like if a miracle happens, could you imagine if that actually happened? Like imagine, this is not a fun thing to imagine, so I apologize. I should come up with a better scenario. But imagine being at someone's like funeral. And all of a sudden they just pop back up like, whoa, I'm back. What would you do? Would you not start freaking out? You know what the first thing I would do? Because I do this. I would immediately try to explain it to myself. That person was never dead. And that whole time we put makeup on them, We laid them in this nice coffin. And that's what I would start doing. And I'd start taking the miracle of someone raising from the dead. And I only know I would do this because I do this on a normal basis. I say, oh man, a coincidence happened, not a miracle happened. You guys know what I'm talking about? I mean, how many of you guys have ever seen those people on TV and or a story, you read it, and it's like, it's a miracle, right? And it's like, wow, that was crazy. And then immediately you just, in your head, you're going, yeah, but what part of the story am I missing? And the truth is, we hardly do that with anything else. We hardly do that with anything else. A lot of us, not all of us, some of us are real skeptics now, but for a long time, any story you read, that was the facts. You go around and share the story, especially the story was like scandalous, something crazy. Did you guys see the Mike Tyson story? Yeah, do you want to see that? He was punching a guy on an airplane. No, you guys haven't seen that yet? You guys need to continue being off Instagram and Facebook. I'm proud of you guys. That's incredible. No, there's these sensational stories, and we don't question anything about it. We don't question if it's fake because it seems normal. But as soon as we see a miracle, I'm saying for myself, but I know that I'm not the only one. I know I'm as human as you are. Miracles happen, and I immediately dismiss them, or I explain them away. And then when a miracle doesn't happen, I do the same thing. I've done this a million times. How many of you guys have been Christians for more than a couple years? Anyone in here been Christians for more than a couple years? Wow, look at that. How many of you guys have, I'm assuming that a lot of you guys have prayed for someone to be healed. Because here's the truth. You can't be a Bible-following Christian. Let me actually make this clear. You can't be a Christian without being Bible-following. Just to make that clear. And then secondly, you can't be a Bible-following Christian without knowing that Christianity is full of crazy stories. Who's reading the Bible with us right now in the year plan? Anyone in here? Guys, have you noticed the stories are nuts? I mean, we just read about Samson. He got his hair cut. And what happened? All of a sudden, he couldn't do anything. He wasn't strong anymore. How many of you guys think, wait a minute, that sounds wacko? Anyone in here? You can't be a Christian and not believe in miracles. And so if you've been a Christian for a long time, it's almost guaranteed that you've prayed or you played with the idea of healing. Healing's a big one. Why do we play with healing so much? Why do we always talk about healing? Because healing is something that we get to see in other people's lives, and it's usually loved ones, and their lives are extended, and we get to celebrate that. So we want to see healing. But how many of you guys have prayed for someone to be healed and it didn't work? I've prayed for people to be healed and they've passed away. Like the thing I was designed least to happen, happened. And I don't know about you, but seeing these kind of things have discouraged me from miracles. And what happens when I see these things, I start trying to explain them off. Well, he didn't get healed because God just didn't want him to be healed. Or maybe you've done this one. The answered prayer didn't happen because he was full of sin. I could see it all over him, you know. And what's happened to a lot of us is that miracles have kind of died in our lives. In fact, if I was to ask you, when's the last time you had a miracle in your life, I bet you would have a hard time coming up with something. And this is why. Because miracles, by definition, are unexplainable events that are by nature supernatural. Something that happened that doesn't even make sense for it to happen. And so when I ask you, hey, when's the last time you had a miracle happen in your life? You look through your life and go, well, I can, for the most part, explain everything that's been going on. I can explain why I have my finances. I'll give God thanks for it, but I can explain why it doesn't really feel like a miracle. I can explain why I have this marriage. And so because I have this marriage, it doesn't really feel like a miracle to me. Or I can explain how I got healed from cancer because my dad, for example, he went through chemo and radiation. Man, he was so grumpy when he was doing that, y'all. You guys know? He was, man. It was so scary when he'd come into the office. You would never know where he was at because, you know, guys, chemo is really tough on the body. Man, do you remember that, Mom? It was nuts. It was nuts, but, you know, he's healed. And so oftentimes, because we can explain something, we go, well, that wasn't a miracle. Because miracle by nature is to say it's unexplainable. But today I'm going to wrestle with you on some things. I'm going to wrestle with you what you mean by explainable or plausible. I actually want to go even further because as Christians, we are in a major dilemma. You are in a major dilemma. You serve a supernatural, invisible God who says he created the heavens and the earth. And you walk around daily speaking to him. And your life is miraculous? Well, hold on. How many of you guys are Christians in here? Any Christians in here? I got some Christians in here, right? Yeah, we got some Christians. Let me try this again. Who you believe in is the God who is supernatural. We actually just call it supernatural because we can't do it. That's what it means. So I need to hit something. You've probably pushed this away many times in your own head. I don't understand it. I don't want to talk about it. I'm not going to think about it. I don't understand how miracles work. I don't understand why miracles happen. I got some great news for you. We're going to do a series on Wednesday night, and I'm so pumped about this. After our core value series, after Susanna has the baby, which the due date was yesterday, so any day she's a ticking time bomb, right? Isn't that great news? Yeah. If you don't know, this is my wife, Susanna. I guess people who don't know you, this is my wife, Susanna. We're having our sixth child, 6 kids because we're insane. We're not insane. We're excited. We're happy. Man, I should do a whole message on kids. Hey. But we're going to do a Wednesday night series where we're going to talk about why healing, why prophecy. Why are these things that we should even be talking about? Why does God even do them? We're going to talk about that. It's an exciting series. I love getting into this stuff. It's been a fun study for me. But now I got your attention, though, about your Christian walk, and it feeling a little subpar to what we believe in the Bible. I actually go a little bit further. Because this isn't going to be a message of radicalness. I want you to know that. This isn't going to be a message of radicalness. This is going to be a little bit different today. And today you're going to leave, and I'm going to hope that you're praying that God does some miracles, but it's going to be a little bit different than you think. But man, when I get to this place of the Bible, and when we read the Old Testament to the New Testament and all the things that happen in those two books, all through those two parts, all the thousands and thousands of years and the thousands and thousands of miracles that happen in there, we divorce ourselves from that. And we go, that was the God of yesterday, but today's God is a God of therapy and a God of counsel, which is not bad. He is. But then we've dismissed the God of great miracles. And there's been a divorce. And today my hope is to change that. That today you would leave here going, you know what? I've divorced the God of the Bible from my life because it's just hard to wrap my head around. I want to say this to you. Your Christianity is dependent on today's message in your life. Our God is a God of miracles. Do you believe that today? And I want to say this, not have you learned that, do you believe that? Because it means that you live kind of crazy. Not just kind of crazy, you are crazy. There's no one in this world who's going to think that you're normal. When you say to someone, you don't have a leg, let me just pray over it so your leg will grow back. Can I tell you guys a really embarrassing story? I'm a bad driver. And I'm not saying that proudly. I'm saying that I'm just telling you a fact. And I'm 18 years old. I'm in a junky old car. I'm at the bank. I got a bunch of people in the car. I crank it up. I throw it in a reverse. I'm talking, and I hit a box of someone's moving truck. And I leave a big dent in the bumper. I'm a radical Christian. You know what I do? The most crazy thing you could do. I'm going to pray over your bumper, sir. I really did that. God, make the bumper healed. I was just praying like a wacko, And the guy was just watching me. I'm going to tell you where the real miracle happened. After that, he said, don't worry about it. He's like, ah. He did. He said, no, don't sweat it, man. This is fine. I'll be fine. Please just go. But there's nothing normal in the world to believe in miracles. But I'm going to convince you today, if you're going to walk this walk out, you have to believe in miracles. And not just that, you got to walk in them. That's scary. Some of you guys have been a Christian for a long time. How many of you guys feel like you haven't been walking in miracles? You've just been walking day to day. Well, today we're going to change that. You guys down for that? Now listen, Madison's last time on AVL, she told me, man, that's audio, visual, and lights, by the way, AVL. I'm sorry. She said, hey, what's your scriptures? And I told her, I have so many scriptures, I'm not going to give you any. But if you have your Bible, I want you to first open up to John chapter 2. I'm just going to start that one. I'm not going to read it to you. I'm going to tell you about it. But I need to answer a question first. Number one, why are miracles important? Number one reason they're important, they are evidence that there is a God beyond us. Miracles are evidence that his word is true. And thirdly, they are for the building of the believer, the church. Let me break those down really quick before I go into these first few miracles in the Bible. Miracles are important because it helps people put their eyes on God, and there is no other God like our God. This is why it's important that you walk in miracles day to day. And I said day to day, by the way. Not month to month, not yearly, not annually. Daily you walk in miracles. because they are the evidence that there is a God beyond us who is greater than us, and he is not a man to be served on earth, but he is beyond us. He is our creator. In fact, the evidence of miracles doesn't just do that, but it proves that his word is true. And this is a great example. Everywhere Jesus went, he did two things. He preached and he did miracles. And you know what the miracles did? It made people listen to his preaching. He would go around and people would bring their friends or their family to him and say, oh, they're sick or they're dying. And he'd raise them up. And then people would go, my goodness gracious, that person's walking in a miracle. I got to listen to him. Same thing with the disciples. But lastly, and this is actually pretty important, the reason why it's important that you walk in miracles daily is because it's a witness to the rest of the world that you are not like them, that you don't live like them. You don't even live by the same standards as them. Oh, let me go further than that. You don't live by the same natural law as them. You know what a crazy Christian looks like who believes in miracles? They might pray over bumpers, I don't know. But I do know this, that they don't fret over their finances. And their job will never be over their God. But that's crazy talk. Because that's the person who believes in miracles. God will provide for me even if I lose my job. You see, when I say miracles, you want to go straight to healing. I want to talk about every miracle. You see, people, this is a crazy one. This one's hard for me to fathom. Divorce is very common. And there's a lot of reason for divorce, but this one is when you really know someone's a crazy Christian. I got friends, I got family, I got people all around me. I know they should have left their spouse because of infidelity, because of adultery. But because they are people who believe in the God of miracles and that God could change the hearts of men, they say, I will not leave this marriage. That's a miracle. Because no one in this world would ever say to do that. That's someone trusting in God to do something crazy. The reason why we should be walking in miracles is for this reason. So I want to just talk about a few miracles. John chapter 2, verse 1 through 11. Jesus, a man at a wedding, the son of Mary. The party is off the chain. They're having a good time. They're drinking wine, you know. Anyone in here like wine? I'm not going to judge you. Whoa, Mario, your hand went up fast, dude. You might want to chill out on that. Look, man, they're loving wine, right? They're partying. It's a wedding. They're kicking back. Yeah. I know, Mario's hand went up quicker than, I didn't even get to finish it. I just said wine. Well, I want some. Yeah. His mother Mary comes up to Jesus and says, Jesus, they're short on wine. I need you to make some. Jesus says, man, it's not my time yet. There's a lot in this scripture. I'm not going to get into all of it. And Mary says, go for it and do it. So he goes and grabs these water pots. And these water pots were for cleaning your hands. It's a religious ritual. Not just that, it's good to clean your hands before you party, okay? Make that a role in your life. So they have all these pots, this dirty water. And he says to some servants, bring that over here. And Jesus takes that water and a miracle happens. That nasty, dirty gray water. Gray water is used water. That's for drinking. That gray water turned into wine. But this is what's really crazy. It wasn't boxed wine. It was the good stuff. It was so good. If you like boxed wine, I'm sorry, I'm dissing you here. But it was the good stuff, man. And it was so good that the people at the party are going, you saved the good line for last? You know what's crazy about that miracle? Nobody even got saved. Nothing even happened after that miracle. It was just a random miracle. There's another miracle that Jesus does. It's just kind of like this. Like, what? Why did you do this miracle? There's a storm on the sea, and Jesus is up praying in the mountains. And he tells the disciples, hey, go across the way. I'll meet you over there. And it's in the middle of the night, and it's a crazy storm. And all of a sudden, they're in the storm. And they look out, and they see this dude just walking on the water. You know? And they're looking at him going, who's that guy walking on the water? You know what's crazy about that miracle? That miracle didn't even have to happen. Jesus was just trying to catch up. Isn't that nuts? Sometimes we think miracles have to be something that have some end purpose. Jesus is like, I'm going to meet you guys over there. Instead of walking around, he's like, I'm just going to take the shortcut. I'm going to walk across the water. I got to tell you some more miracles because you can't be a Christian and not believe in this stuff. John chapter 4, Jesus heals an official's son at Capernaum in Galilee. Mark chapter 1, Jesus drives out evil spirits from a man. Jesus heals Peter's mother-in-law who was sick with a fever. Jesus healed a ton of people. If you read in Matthew chapter 8, people were just coming to him. People were just getting healed every time they came around him. This one's crazy. I love this miracle. Jesus is being questioned about taxes. And he tells Peter, go catch a fish. Inside the fish's mouth will be a coin. Take that coin and go pay taxes. How many guys want to pay taxes that way? Well, that'd be tight. There was a man lowered down from the roof while Jesus was teaching. And they opened up the roof and they lowered him down because he couldn't walk. And Jesus raises him up so that he could walk. It goes further. There's a widow's son who is dead in the city of Nain. And Jesus raises him up. Jesus is on the bottom of a boat and the storm is going crazy. And Jesus comes out of the boat or to the top of the boat and says, peace, be still. And the waves and the wind stop at the command of his voice. There's these two demon-possessed dudes hanging out in the graveyard. No one could bound them. Every time they try, they'd break the chains off them. They're supernaturally crazy. Jesus steps on the shore in Mark chapter 5. And they come down and bow before him. And no one else could do it. No one in the world could set these people free. And Jesus says, demons be gone. And they flee from the men. They go into a bunch of pigs. And it says that the man who was demon-possessed was now normal. That same chapter, Jesus is walking, and a woman who had a blood issue for 12 years, she had been suffering, and nobody could help her. Not a doctor. She spent all of her money on it, it says. She just touched his garment. Just touched his garment of his clothes, and she was healed. 5,000 men, not counting the women and children, sitting down listening to Jesus, and he takes a couple loaves of bread and some fish, he blesses it, and everybody eats until they're full, and afterwards they have more food than they started with. Deaf and dumb people can hear and speak. Demon-possessed people, children, multiple times, a little girl who was a Gentile and another man that the disciples couldn't heal, get demons cast out of them. Man who is blind from birth can see. Lazarus, dead, raises from the tomb. A woman who was crippled for 18 years gets healed and walks. Lepers who are kicked out of the city, their skin is diseased, they're dying on the outside. He heals them. One point, with one word, 10 of them get healed. While Jesus is getting arrested, someone cuts off a guard's ear. He picks it up. Can I touch your ear, Mom? And puts it back on. A fig tree didn't have figs on it, y'all. A fig tree didn't have figs. And he was mad. And he looks at it and says, you're going to die, tree. And the next day they show up and it's withered. But this is what's cool because I list all those miracles and you go, well, that was Jesus, Tom. Pastor Tom, that's Jesus. Of course he did those miracles, but this is what's cool. See, before Jesus showed up and did all these miracles, there was all these other miracles that happened before Jesus was walking on the earth. Can I tell you some of them? Let's not start with creation because that's insane. Let's start with Moses walking in front of Pharaoh with a staff, sticks it on the ground, and it turns into a snake. And when he picks it back up, it turns back into a snake. This one blows my mind. The entire river turned into blood. Turned into blood, y'all. Anyone get squeamish about blood? Imagine being swimming and all of a sudden, that's what I always imagine. water flowing from a rock. Moses lifted up a bronze serpent, and everyone who got bit by these snakes in the book of Exodus were healed, whoever looked at it. Let's go further. There's a lot more. I can't read all. I'm trying to go through all of this. A man prayed that the earth would stop. For 3 days, the earth stopped rotating. People making fun. This is a crazy one. People making fun of a prophet got destroyed by bears. A widow's son raised up by our guy, Elijah. One time Elijah's doing this thing. This is Old Testament. This is thousands of years before Jesus. And he's having a competition between some people who serve false idols, and he serves the God, our God. And they make these altars, and they say, let's have a competition. If your God's real, then let him come down and burn up the altar. And if my God's real, he'll come down and burn up the altar. And they have this competition. And it says for hours, all day, these other guys who served a false God danced around and cut themselves and prayed that their God would come down with fire. And Elijah comes in. This is what Elijah does. Elijah says, God, show them today. And it says fire comes from heaven and consumes the temple or the altar. But we got more. There's a story where Balaam is walking and his donkey talks to him. Wait, there's more. There's an old widow who didn't have any more food, just a little oil and a little flour. And it got multiplied and multiplied and multiplied again. Wait, I got more. The Jordan River, when Joshua was crossing, opened up so he could walk on dry ground. Jericho, the walls of Jericho, Joshua was supposed to walk around it 7 times with the entire army of Israel. And as they did, the 7th day, they shouted and screamed and blew some trumpets, and the walls fell down on their own. Azariah, I can't remember his name, has no leprosy and then is struck with leprosy and then healed. Daniel goes into a den of hungry lions and lives. Jonah gets swallowed by a whale. Well, maybe you're saying, but Tom, that's the God of the Old Testament. You're talking about miracles and miracles and miracles, but that's the God of the Old Testament. This isn't our lives anymore because today is a little bit different. Well, let me tell you some New Testament stories. In the book of Acts, the disciples, who are just people like you and I, what do? They go to the gate of Beautiful. There's a man who's crippled there. He says, man, can I have some money? He says, you know what? I don't got money, but what I do have, I give to you. Rise up and walk. And a man who was never able to walk rises up and he dances. And let me explain this for a second. This miracle isn't that someone couldn't walk and they stood up like you getting out of bed. That means muscles grew onto his legs that he did not have. That means the core of his muscles right here grew that he did not have. And he stood up and he didn't just stand up, he danced. Well, that's not all. Paul speaking for a super long time. Listen, sometimes I talk for a long time, but Paul would speak all night. A young man sat on the windowsill, fell asleep. Have you guys ever fallen asleep in church? It feels good, man. But he fell asleep and he fell out the window. He laid on the street as dead. Paul goes down and lays himself on him and he says, oh, rise up, and he lives. Speaking of Paul, Paul goes into a town preaching the gospel and they stone him. That means they crush him with rocks. It says the other disciples went in, they grabbed him, they dragged him out of the city, and he rose back up and went back into that same city. This one's crazy. Philip, he's hanging out, and before he knows it, he's teleported and he's running. And what's he running next to? A chariot. Have you guys ever ran next to a chariot before? I don't think so. And inside there's an Ethiopian, a guy in Africa, who's reading the book of Isaiah, the prophecies of the Most High God, our King Jesus. And he has questions. So Philip says, let me jump in there, man. Gets in there, and what does he do? He tells him about Jesus. And then he gets out, and the Ethiopian says, man, this is crazy. I got to get baptized. So they pull over the chariot, they get out, there's a pond of water, and they get out there, and while they're baptized them, check this out. As the Ethiopian's coming up, Philip disappears, and he reappears back in Jerusalem. What? Paul, struck blind by the sight of Jesus, goes to a man named Ananias, and he prays for him, and the blindness comes off of him. You know why I told you all these stories? Because you have to be crazy to believe this. Not accept it. Not to say, okay, it happened. You have to be crazy to believe this stuff. Did you hear what I just told you? Did you guys hear what I just told you? That's nuts. This is wonky. But I got to get to the end here, so I don't want to sit here and tell you how crazy this is over and over, because I know me telling these stories, you guys have heard them so much that literally you're bored. And that blows me away. We just talked about crazy things happening, recorded in history. And I'm looking at you going, yeah, you have to be nuts to believe this. Because if you believe this, you're going to live wild. That's the God we serve. Because this is what a miracle really is. Can I tell you what a miracle really is? A coincidence so great you can't explain it. Can I say that again? Miracles are just coincidences so great you can't explain it. That's what we call miracles. And when I say you need to walk out miracles every day, that's not the miracles I'm talking about. I'm going to get to that in a second. But the reason why these are fantastical, the reason why I want someone's arm to grow back is because I want to see something that I can't explain away. But I want to say this to you. Miracles are truthfully not that. That's just what we've summed it up to be. Miracles are any time God works with people, even if you could explain it. Why is that a big deal? Because I want to encourage you on something. You have been walking in miracles every single day. You just decided to stop believing they were miracles. You see, I told you all these great stories, and the truth is, all those stories, you either one, thought, oh, I like that story, or two, go, man, do I really believe that story? And the reason why you don't believe that story is because you're caught on something. If I could explain it, then it's not that powerful. If I could follow and trace it backwards, then it's not that powerful. Listen, I've thought this before. What if when Jesus said to the paralytic to stand up and rise, it was just coincidence that something in his brain triggered and all of a sudden he could walk again? Maybe that was the case. Or maybe it was just coincidence that when the man had mud rubbed in his eye, right, and Jesus spits in the mud and rubs it in his eye, then he could see. Maybe it was just coincidence. Maybe it had nothing to do with supernatural power. Because, I mean, let's be real. If you could find an explanation, you immediately think it wasn't God anymore. As soon as you have an explanation of why Lazarus rose up from the dead, because maybe he was never dead. Maybe they thought he was dead. And, you know, that was the old days. And weren't they kind of dumb back then, which people actually believe, but they weren't. They were very smart. And maybe they were kind of dumb. And so when he rose from the dead, maybe he was never dead. Maybe he just woke up. Then as soon as you have an explanation for a miracle, you don't call it God's work anymore. And I'm looking at the scriptures. I'm going, wait a minute. There's miracles happening in my life every single day. Let me tell you one of them. This is a great one. This is the best compliment my wife's ever going to get. I love this compliment, all right? My wife lives in California, Southern California, goes to a school in Virginia, Washington, D.C. While she's in school, she's not living for Jesus. My wife has a desire in her life as a kid, and she believes it's a calling in her life to marry a pastor. And can I get something really crazy for you guys? She wants to marry a pastor as a kid, like Pastor Matthew Barnett, the son of Tommy Barnett. This story is so weird. She starts living in a high school. She starts living her own life. She's in the world, y'all. Smoking doobies. I don't know if she was smoking doobies. I just want to say it. My mom just said, he's so stupid. she just whispered that. 18 years old, she moves from California, goes to school. She's going to be a journalist. She's going to be a political journalist. She's out there going to school. She has boyfriends. She's living life, partying. She's for sure, God will never let me have what I thought I was supposed to have. I screwed that up. But this is what happens. While she's at school, she ends up graduating, not while she's at school. While she's at school, by the way, actually, this is interesting. While she's at school, I get my first girlfriend. I'm so happy. My first girlfriend, man, I'm going to marry her because that's what we do with our first girlfriends. You automatically think, this is it. It's over. And we're dating, and it's on and off and on and off. And Susanna moves to Alabama. She's working down there, still living her bad life. She starts going to church. She was raised in church. She starts going back to church, but still living her bad life. And then one day at a conference with Eddie James. Anyone in here like Eddie James? I love Eddie James. On a certain day, at a certain year, comes up to her and prophesies to her. Starts telling her about her life. My wife bawls her eyes out and decides that day, I'm giving my life to Jesus. While that's happening, she decides, I'm going to end all my relationships. I'm done. I'm going to serve Jesus. She doesn't know this, but at that same time, around that same time that she did that, I'm breaking up with my girlfriend for the third time. Over a Facebook message, by the way. That's how I did it. Yeah. No class. The day she says to the Lord, I'm going to follow you, she starts looking around on the internet, not the same day, but later on, she finds a blog. You know what blogs are, written blogs, right? It's a written blog. And you know what it's talking about? It's talking about our kids ministry, Metro Kids. Some girl named Becca who used to work with us, super great, she sees this blog and she goes, man, I want to know more about it. And she decides to quit her job and randomly come where? To the Atlanta Dream Center. In an old crack house to work for my younger sister, who, by the way, I helped match with Adili, okay? And you're going to see the coincidence here in a second. I take full credit for that, Adili. I want you to know that. When she shows up, that day she shows up, guess what I do? I check her out. But that night, I get back with that girlfriend of mine. Isn't that nuts? I got back with that girlfriend of mine, which I'm glad I did. Because Susanna, at the time, was still caught up on some other guy. She's had to get through some stuff. And now we're in the same location. How are we in the same location? I would say maybe just a bunch of coincidences. And the truth is, I can explain every single one of them. But as the story continues, I start realizing this is too crazy. Let's go a little further. Finally, one day, me and her are hanging out. And the Lord speaks to me. This is the girl you're going to marry. This better be real, because I'm about to risk it all. I call up my girlfriend. I break up with her. I tell a few of my family members, hey, me and this girl, I tell my mom. My mom says, finally, good job. And this is what happens, y'all. The next day, we're hanging out. And you know what she says to me? I believe that God's called me to marry you. You know what I love about that story? I was walking in miracles, but I didn't even know it. You know what's really cool about that story? Because we don't know how to explain that away. We ended up having children, right? We got 6 kids. Did you know, this is no joke, those kids would not have existed without this entirety of the story? Wait, time out, wait, what do you mean by that? But I got more stories than just that, because this is just me walking out my daily miracles. The only difference between my daily miracles and your daily miracles is I'm paying attention and going, oh, this is God working in my life. You see, a lot of us go through our day-to-day and we go, God, where are you? Where are you? He's going, I've been working in your life. That person who showed up at your shop and said, man, I'm not feeling good, that was me making an opportunity for a miracle in your life. But you've been looking for the unexplainable. He says, don't you know I'm the God who directs your feet? I'm the God who knows your ways. I'm the God not of the unexplainable. I'm the God who knows that you can't explain me, but I'll give you opportunities to explain what I'm doing to you. That was really confusing, I know. He's working in your life. You're just not paying attention, y'all. The miracles that are happening in your life, can I tell you, a lot of us are cursing the miracles God are doing in our life. People are being exposed in your life for the sin they're doing, and you're devastated, but the reality of it is God's saying, that's my miracle. If it wasn't for me, you would have never saw that. No, it goes further than that. Because what I'm trying to pull out in front of you is your God has been working wondrously in your life. But there's something else I got to hit on. This is where I'm going to end here, okay? Because I'm going further than I wanted to, and I got excited. He doesn't just want to do miracles for you. He wants to do miracles through you. And this is actually the bigger thing. This is actually what this whole sermon is really about. He's not just the God of miracles because he wants to do miracles around you. Every one of these miracles I was reading in the Bible, he used somebody for. Sometimes it was Jesus. It was Elijah. But he said, I want the miracle that happened when Elijah walks into that room. I want the miracle that happened when Jesus is there. When the disciples, when Peter and John, and they walked to that gate of beautiful, I'm going to use them for my miracles. You see, the first part of this message was really just to really nail something out. You're walking in his miracles. But because you've been so desperate to see him do other works around you, you've not let him do miracles through you. And this is what I mean by this. My parents have 2 kids, Dan and PJ. They're my oldest brothers. PJ's the oldest than Dan. And they're young, and they're new Christians, and they love Jesus. And they don't have any gifts for Christmas that year. And what was it they wrote down, Mom, that they wanted, the kids, my brothers?
They wanted cars, little matchbook cars, teddy bears.
Cute kids, just the cutest kids in the world. Good job. They had $0 to their name. They knew that on Christmas morning, those kids were going to be devastated. But a miracle happened, huh, Ma? Someone showed up on Christmas Eve after the stores were closed with the entire list the boys had wanted. Every single gift. You know, I always heard that story from my parents' side. God, the miracle working God moved in my life. He provided for me. But you know what I never thought about? Was who he did the miracle through. There was this man and this woman who one day were at home and the Lord put on their mind, Paul and Patty, you should help them out. And not knowing that mom and dad are at home going, God, I don't know how this is going to work. Our kids are going to be devastated. The Lord was looking for someone to do a miracle. And there was someone who was willing. And they said, you know what, honey, let's go to the store. This is the process that happened. Let's pull out our bank card. Let's pull out our cash. And let's buy some gifts for Paul and Patty. And then they're collecting these gifts. They're buying these Matchbox cars. And they're buying these teddy bears. All this stuff. They didn't even know. They're just going, man, I want to serve these guys. I just want to bless these guys. They start pulling everything together. And then they put it inside some gift bags and they wrap them. You know what's cool? It wasn't that crazy. It wasn't like arms were growing. They just went and bought some gifts. And that day when they showed up at that house, my parents didn't see a bunch of gifts. They saw an incredible miracle. Oh God, how did you know? This is explainable, but this is impossible. This coincidence is too great. And they worshiped God. But there's better stories, or more stories. I love this story. I've shared this story a million times. This is John and Judy Patassery. These guys, like I just say, they don't have the same culture as me. Look at how I'm dressed for church. Would you ever go to a church where someone dressed? And I know. These guys are the best people in the world. And they started showing up to church when I was a youth pastor. And they're showing up to youth group. They look young, but they don't look that young. And I'm preaching. I used to always kind of get nervous because they'd show up. I always thought, who are these guys? And one day I get my car broken into and my cash gets stolen. I took a trip with my sister Maddie and my brother Mike, and we went to the beach and we came back and I left money on the seat and someone came and broke my window and stole my money. It was like $80, but how many of you guys know sometimes $80 is everything you got? Well, I had $10 extra in the bank. And I said, God, what am I supposed to do? I just got robbed. I can't pay for that window. It's going to cost me $100. And God says, take your $10 and put it in the offering. I said, no. I said, okay, yes, but why? Explain to me. So I said, okay, fine. So I take my little checkbook, $10, and I sign it. And I'm going, man, this is the end of my account. I give it to Sherry. She's our bookkeeper. And that night, I come to church. and a miracle happened. I was blessed with $100 from John and Judy. You know what's cool about that story is I was a recipient of that $100, but for them, they were just giving $100 away. God said, I'm looking for someone to be a miracle in someone's life. And they said, here I am, send me. But that's not the only miracles. Guys, I honestly, I could tell you miracle after miracle. Man, this is a fun one. This is a financial one because I stress about finance because I'm not good at it. I don't know how to do finance. Numbers and letters are the same to me. They just don't make sense. Algebra was hard. I'm just kidding. We're short. This is March of 2020. Our church doesn't have enough money. We know that. Me and the accountant, Jeremy Amo, I said, Jeremy, this isn't going to work out. We need to pray. Let's just pray. So we're praying. I said, God, we need provision. I need a miracle. That's why I said, I need a miracle. God, will you provide? And I hear a small, still voice in my head. Someone's going to give $10,000 this Sunday. Okay. That day I'm in church. I'm preaching about actually being good stewards. And someone who had already brought a check, the Lord has spoken to him, said, I want you to give $10,000 today. It's okay, Lord. Now, I will never forget that day. Jeremy Amo, he calls me up. I'm on a drive to Derek Calhoun's house. We're having a board meeting. And he says, hey, so-and-so gave $10,000 today, just like we prayed for. And I remember going, oh, it's the God of miracles. But what was cool about that miracle is that there was a man behind that miracle. That God said, I want to do a miracle through you. I'm sharing these stories, and I could sit here literally all day. We got, especially with mom and dad here, I could tell stories over and over and over about people being used for the miracles of God. In fact, all the miracles I shared with you in the Bible are about people being used by God, and that's where the miracles came from. And today, this is my hope. That one, you recognize that God is moving in your life every single day, and you can trust Him. But number two, that God is looking for people to be His miracles. That He's looking to and fro and going, who's going to be the one who buys those Christmas gifts for that Paul and Patty? Who's going to be the one who does this and that for these people over here? Who's going to be the one who gives that encouraging word or says the thing that needs to be said? You see, He's a God who's working great miracles. I don't doubt, I hope you don't doubt that. But you know what the difference is between the Old Testament, Jesus, and the New Testament in our lives? It's not that God's not doing miracles. It's that the people aren't willing to do the miracles He's calling us to do. And that's the difference. Paul and John, and they walked around and did miracles. I want you to know what they did. They were taking what God gave to them, gifts of healing and prophecy, and they were using them. That's all it was. To everybody else, it was a miracle. To them, they were just using what they had. I want to ask you a question today. Are you looking for Him to do miracles in your life? Because if so, He is. Or are you looking to be a vessel for His miracles? Because if so, He wants to use you today. How do I become a vessel of His miracles? Number one, Isaiah 6:8. You need to volunteer to Him first. Father, here I am. Send me. I don't know what miracles you have in store for me to be used for, but God, if it's to bring Christmas gifts to a family or if it's to go pray for healing, I just want you to use me. Make me your vessel. I'm volunteering today that I am the vessel of your miracles. You start volunteering for His miracles, you'll start seeing miracles happen through you. Number two, you know what the disciples did? You know what Jesus did? You know what Elijah did? To become the source of miracles for others in his life? They abided with Him. They sat with Jesus. But more than that, because I love what the disciples did, they learned. Can I tell you, if you want to be someone who has miracles, be walking through you, or you're the vessel of miracles, you don't just volunteer, but you study the Word of God. You know it. You know His voice. And thirdly, the last thing, if you want to be a vessel of miracles, you have to be someone who's obedient. If you could grab these three things, I'm going to volunteer, I'm going to know your word, and God, I'm going to obey you. You won't just see the miracles God's doing in your life, you will be the miracle in everybody else's life. How many of you guys want to live that way? Can I tell you this? As you guys stand to your feet, because I'm going to end this thing. Can I encourage you on this? You were designed to be a vessel, to be an instrument of His miracles. You are not designed to be an instrument of need. You weren't designed to be an instrument of worry, an instrument of strife. You are designed to be an instrument of His miracles working through you. What is it that He's given to you? Maybe you walk in the gift of healing. Man, I would love to see that. Maybe it's prophecy, but you know what a lot of the other gifts were? You know what Tabitha did? Tabitha was a miracle worker. All she did was she made sure that everybody in her neighborhood had clothes. That's what she did. What is it that you have? That you're saying, God, I want to be a vessel, and the Lord's saying, well, look what I've given to you. This is what I want to use for you, the miracles I have for people in their life. That's what I want to do. Just for a second, if you're in this room, I want everyone to close their eyes. I want you to bow your head and close your eyes. We say that so no one's looking around. I'm going to give 2 little calls, and then we're going to end this thing. I got 4 minutes. That's all I got. If you're in this room today, and you're saying, man, I want to see God's miracles in my life. I want to see what He's doing because I feel like I don't have a supernatural life. But I want to see it today for myself. Today, I need help seeing the miracles God's doing in my life. If you're in it, just throw up your hand real high. I want to pray over you. It's okay, throw it up real high. It's okay, no one's looking at you. Father, you see these hands, these people going, God, I want to see what you're doing in my life. I feel alone oftentimes. I feel like I've been just on my own. I don't see miracles. God, I pray that you start revealing to each one of them, God, not just the grand things, but the things they've been overlooking. You are the God of life. Oh, every breath you've given us, Jesus. God, I pray that we see the miracles in our life today. That, Father, we would go, oh, I see my God. He's been working day in and day out. In the name of Jesus. Every head still bowed because I got another question. If you're in this room, you could raise your hand for both of these. But you're going, man, Pastor Tommy, I want to be used for God's miracles. I see what He's done. I get it. After hearing you talk, I get it. He's doing miracles in my life. But I want to be the vessel of miracles. And you're in this room, you're saying, God, will you use me? I'm here to volunteer today. And you're not volunteering for me. I'm not going to put you to work. You're saying, God, I want to volunteer to you. Will you use me for miracles? If you're in this place and you desire that, will you lift up your hands real high? I want to pray something over you that's crazy. Father, you see these hands. Oh, there are hands all over this building. And they're saying, like just like Isaiah 6:8, here I am, God, use me. God, here I am. Make me the miracle vessel. Let me be like Elijah. Let me be like God. I pray that we be like Ezekiel, Father. Let's be like Paul and Peter, Jesus. Let the miracles come through us. And today, Father, I pray over everyone with their hands up that Jesus, that they who are volunteering would obey your voice and use the things they've been given from you to bring miracles in other people's lives. Lord, I'm not praying this to make them feel good. God, I'm praying this to you, Father, that you would remind them that you want to use who they are and what they have to be miracles in others' lives. In the name of Jesus, we pray.
We hope you enjoyed today's sermon. Once again, if you'd like to support this ministry, log on to www.dreamcenterchurch.com, where every dollar advances the kingdom of God. Until next time, be blessed and go do the great things God has called you to do.